Hello from the Busy Needle. Today I have a machine minute for you on the Singer 401A. This machine, in the owner's manual, Singer touted this machine as the greatest singer of all time. And it is a doozy. These are very popular out there, which we'll talk about in just a second. It's called a 401A because it was made in Anderson, South Carolina. A lot of machines from Singer had that. My Singer 19 is a Singer 19K because it was made in Kilbowie, Scotland. And there were Singer factories in other places besides America. But this one was all American made. The inside is steel gears, but the outside is molded aluminum, so it's not all that heavy. This was introduced in the last part of 1957 for the Christmas rush. And it's hard to imagine now that a sewing machine would need to come out for the Christmas rush. But evidently sewing machines were very popular Christmas gifts at the time. And it has that futuristic, sleek look if you compare this to the black, curvy machines that Singer was famous for before. You see, it looks very different. This was very different, a very different design for them. The motor is enclosed. There's not a motor on the outside. It's enclosed inside the pillar here. And there's a lot of neat things. What was going on in the world at that time in 1950s? Singer was coming under fire. They were getting a lot of competition from the foreign machines, like German machines, the Pfaff, the Necci from Italy. Sophia Loren was one of their spokespersons. She did commercials for Necci. Elna. So there were other machines that were giving some competition to Singer. So they had to come out with some more modern things. And one of those is this knob. And I'm going to come in and let you see this. This allowed this machine, the 401A, to do all sorts of decorative stitches. It has two knobs, and you would choose the combination. Look here. Here's where you have, look at all those stitches that this machine can make just with these different combinations. Remember, this is a time before the modern embroidery machine. This was a big deal for Singer to put a machine out there like that. So you can make all sorts, imagine this around the hem of a pretty baby dress or around the sleeve of a lady's blouse. You can do all sorts of pretty things with this, and I'm sure the ladies of the time really had their heads turned by this feature of this machine. And there was also a 403 made that looked very similar to this, but it did not have the decorative. It was just a straight stitch machine. And to be quite honest, I would be just as happy with that because I've never used this. I have access to an embroidery machine, and I've never used any of these. I've just used straight stitch with this machine. I've been very happy with it. It's gear driven. There's no belt. Another thing I like about this machine, they kept the old-fashioned bobbin winder. There's no bobbin winder motor, nothing fancy here to tear up, like some of those will do if it's mounted on top of the machine. All you do is flip it up, and what drives it is this wheel. You have a bobbin tire that you put on here, and that can be replaced. It's easy. Just flip it off and put a new one on if you need a new one. And I like that kind of bobbin winder myself. That's just a personal preference. Here is the stitch length selector. Had a back stitch, and you come back down. So that was kind of similar to some of the 15s and other machines that were out there of the day. Also, the light is under here, has a switch. And this light's kind of neat. It actually has a magnifying glass over it that spreads the light over your work area. A lot of the older machines had the light mounted on the back, but this one actually has it more towards the front so you can see what you're doing. This series of machines, there was a 301, which was lighter, more portable. This 401, which was probably the most popular. There was a 501, I think a 600. There was one called a Rocketeer. All these are in what Singer called their Slant-O-Matic series. And the reason it's called that, if I can get in here and let you see how the needle kind of slants forward and how that foot has a slant on it? That made it more visible when you're sewing. The needle was more towards you, and you could see more of what you were doing, especially if you were doing the decorative stitches. You could see what was going on. It's a very easy threading mechanism. So this, I like this machine a lot. I'll show you some of the, I don't have any accessories. I'll tell you the history of this machine in a second, of my personal one. Here it takes a class 66 bobbin that you can see here. Notice this was the first machine that had a front-loading drop-in bobbin. Big advantage to many people. People who didn't like the side when you opened it up and you had to put the bobbin case in with 2 fingers and work it in just right, or have to reach up under your machine to do it. If you drop it, it rolls all over the floor. A lot of people were very attracted to this. They really like this. Also, you can just peek in and see how you're doing on your bobbin thread. You don't have to pull everything out and redo everything. You just have a peek and slide the door back shut. So That was a neat feature. And again, the Class 66 bobbins can be bought everywhere. Here's some from Walmart that are plastic. These work just as well. I don't use the plastic ones much because it only has one hole to stick your thread through when you wind your bobbin. And this one has several that are larger, and it's easier for me to do. I don't have an accessory kit for this machine. Here's a couple of the slant foot options I have. Notice how the foot slants back. Unlike the previous singers that had the straight foot, this slants back, so you have to have a Slant-O-Matic foot for this machine if you buy one. And this is a walking or even feed foot that I have for quilting. So I've been trying to use this machine for quilting. It works out pretty well. It has the same amount of space here as my 15 does. It just doesn't have as much of a curve here. I'm having to learn to work around that. The personal history of this machine, of course, its name is Thor. And he came to me, interestingly enough, my husband works for the highway department, and they were doing demolition of some old homes where a highway was going to be built. And he was going in, making the last sweep, being sure there was no one inside these homes before they were demolished. And this machine was just sitting on the table. So he grabbed it and made off with it. Came home with it. I wasn't exactly happy because we have a lot of sewing machines here. And he said, but wait till you see what I've brought. And this, I mean, it looks new almost. It has very little wear. There's some scratches on the bobbin plate here. But other than that, this machine's in great shape. And it has sewn like a champ. We just cleaned it out, oiled it up. And it always sews. Whenever I get ready to use it, it's ready to go. We have another one in my household who's named Tobias. My mother gave it to my daughter because she loves this kind of machine. And it was bought on Craigslist. We went to Florence, Alabama one day and bought that from a lady on Craigslist. These used to be easier to come by. They were actually, my mother learned to sew on one of these in her home ec department. They were home ec machines in the 1960s. Singer sold those to many home ec departments. They were made for about 4 years, from 1957 until around 61 or 62. Then Singer moved on to the Rocketeer series, which was another Slant-O-Matic. It was similar to this. Then after that, Singer got into some machines I don't think a lot of. The Touch and Sew, the Golden Sew, the Futura, the Athena. Those all had plastic parts, and they just didn't hold up like these good old Singers did. You know, this machine is 60 years old, and it still sews terrific. And I like to use it for a lot of different things. I'm going to do a little stitching. I'll let you hear the sound of it. Sometimes people like the sounds of machines. Do what I can here with one hand. And you can tell it's gear driven. It has a little different sound. And it makes a beautiful stitch. And the bobbin stitch on this machine is just as pretty as the top stitch. If you can find one of these somewhere for sale and you're in the market for a vintage machine and it runs, if you find it in an estate sale, yard sale, I would suggest getting it if it's at a good price. But a lot of people are very happy with these machines. And if you try to buy one on eBay or Craigslist from many people, I see them priced at $300, $350. So if you find one in a bargain, I would suggest getting it. Oh, another feature I didn't think to show you. Threading diagram on the inside. I'm sure that was handy for all those home ec teachers back in the day when a kid couldn't thread the machine. They could just say, have a look in there. And there's your diagram. So, there's a machine minute on the 401A. I hope you all have a great day, and God bless.